Okay, welcome everyone to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for first year schools. And in this meeting, we're prepping for the third advisory council meeting. And the focus of that meeting is program goals. My name is Sue Reynolds, and I'm president of the American Student Achievement Institute. Okay, so also on this call is Debbie Howell, and just a reminder that Debbie is available for any follow-up questions that you have. She is the Redesigning School Counseling Strategic Planning Specialist. So you might want to jot down her phone number real quick, 812-349-4142, or her email is howell, Howell, at asainstitute.org. This slide will come up again at the end, so if you didn't get that all down and you need it, you'll be able to do it on one of the last slides. Okay, so webinar agenda. We're going to start out with a real quick review of the RSC beliefs and process, and then this month we're prepping for program goals. In addition to the meeting this month, there is a pre-meeting mailing where we're going to send out data to your council so that they can dig through that data before they come to your meeting. An alternative would be to turn this meeting into two different face-to-face meetings, one to look at data and then the next one to come in and talk about program goals. So, but I think almost all of our schools have the data analysis happen at home before the council members come. It just kind of saves a lot of time. So we'll also do a quick meeting walkthrough, and then we'll talk about the submissions and the rubric items for this month, and then look at the online system. So, okay, quick review. RSC beliefs, just a reminder, we believe that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. Today, you're going to see that those sound choices are going to become goals. All of your program goals are to help kids make better choices, and we'll kind of talk about how that works. So this is just our school counseling pyramid, and again, we believe that when students are engaged in sound guidance and counseling programs, they make better choices, and then achievement goes up. So the whole focus of the school counseling program is to help kids make those better choices, those sound choices, and those choices are going to become your goals. What you're trying to help kids do is to make those sound choices. So when we're designing the program, and we're going to really get into this today, we're going to start out by looking at the achievement goals in your school's school improvement plan. So we're going to say to the council, here's what our school is all about. We're going after this achievement. And then we're going to ask the council, and this is what will happen at this month's meeting. We're going to ask the council, what choices do kids need to make in order to reach those goals? You know, in order to reach our goals, what would our sixth graders need to do? What would our seventh graders need to do? And all of those things are going to turn into your program goals. And then next month, or down the road, we'll look at why aren't kids making those choices, and what are we going to do about it? What activities do we need to put in place so that kids will make those choices? So it's all about the choices, and those choices are going to be related to your program goals. Okay, in the process, we started out by getting ready. We put together your organizational structure and collected data. And then in September, you had your first meeting where you introduced all of this to your council. You taught them vocabulary and just kind of got them up to speed. Then last month, and I'm so pleased, before we started recording, school shared how their last meetings went, and it sounded like the vision discussions were just dynamite, very rich. So last month we looked at what are our dreams, and now we're going to say, okay, if those are our dreams, then what choices do kids need to make in order to reach those dreams? What choices do kids need to make in order to reach our academic goals in our school improvement plan? So that's today. We're going to talk about all of the choices, and there will be a lot of them, all of the choices that kids who are successful in school tend to make. And you know, I think you'll end up with 50, 60, maybe 70 things that kids who are successful at school, who go on to post-secondary and to high school jobs, you know, these are the choices that those kids tend to make in school. So that's goals. That's what we're doing this time. And then next month, we're going to start talking, actually there's kind of two steps here. We'll look at data to help us understand why kids aren't making those choices in your school. And we'll start looking at expanding resources and figuring out like how much time do we have to work on those program goals, and then we'll come up with priority goals. And the priority goals will be a small number, a subset of your program goals, maybe just even one or two or three that you are really going to hit hard in the next year of your school counseling program. So after we know what the 2 or 3 priority goals are, then we'll really start to look at the whys. Why aren't kids making those choices? And once we know the whys, then we'll design activities in March. And then at the end of the year, we'll start to prepare to implement the activities that you all have planned. So, okay, so that's the process in a nutshell. And then today, we're looking at program goals. So to begin with, there will be a pre-meeting mailing. The mailing includes two things. One is a cover memo that we're going to give you, that we will give you, and then also the student achievement goals from your school's school improvement plan. So we'll give you a template where you can enter those goals in if you want a one-page template, or it's also if you just have a page of your school improvement plan that you could download and then make copies of it, send out with your memo. That would be fine. You can send the memo electronically, you can send it in postal mail, whatever you want to do. So here's the task in a nutshell, and then we'll go through exactly how this all works. But in a nutshell, we're taking your council to a website, and it's asainstitute.org/RSC-public-data. And we're allowing them to look at the student choice data from your student surveys. And only the student choice data. So then we're asking them, when you look at this data, so they're going to print out the report, and then we're going to ask them to check all of the choices that they think students should make in your school. So they'll read through, and one of the choices is turning in homework. Do they think your kids should turn in their homework? Is that a choice that kids in your school should make? And of course they'll check yes on that. And then we're going to ask them to also put an asterisk next to any choice that's concerning them because too few students are making that choice. So they might say, turning in homework is a choice that all kids should make, and we're concerned about this because only 23% of the kids say they turn in their homework on a regular basis. So they're looking at what's important and then what are we concerned about. And then the second part of the activity is we're asking your council to go into some of the drill down reports so that they can start to identify student groups that maybe are not making choices at a level that's comparable to their peers. So it may be that they start looking at, maybe one choice is to visit a college campus, and you start looking at the drill down data and you see that your paid lunch kids visit college campuses, but your free and reduced lunch kids do not. Or your girls make that choice, but your boys do not. Or your white students make the choice, but your Hispanic students do not. So, so we're looking at, do we have what we call guidance gaps? We've heard a lot about achievement gaps. We also think that there are guidance gaps, that there are some kids that just don't get the same guidance as other kids because of our biases, or because the parents are not as engaged, or the parents haven't been to college and they're not as knowledgeable about financial aid or how to do a campus visit or whatever. So we want to start to identify in this step as well, where are our guidance gaps? Which students maybe are not getting as much guidance as others? And everybody has them. Even if you are a rural, 100% white school, you're probably going to have guidance gaps in your paid lunch and your free and reduced lunch students, or your boys and girls. So everybody has gaps, and then we just got to figure out, do we want to close this gap, and if so, how are we going to do that? Okay, so that's it. When your council members log in to the student choice data, they're going to see a screen that looks like this. And at the top, they'll identify 2015 is the survey that you gave them. So they'll click 2015, then they'll do this drop down and identify your school, and then they're going to click on the summary report for plans and choices. And when they do that, this is what the report looks like. So this is just a couple of questions. This is from the Student Choices report. Did you meet with a college rep at your high school this year? And this is a real schools data. And so whoever filled out this form, check, yes, they think that this is a choice that all students should make. Everybody should meet with a college rep to explore and learn about, college. And then they also asterisked it to show that this is something that they were concerned about, so that only less than a third of the kids in grades 11 and 12 had done that. So again, right now we're looking at what's important, and then later we're going to look at, okay, what are we concerned about? So did you attend a college fair? The person thinks that all students should do that. Did you visit a college campus? The person thinks that all students should do that. So, people are checking the things off. It would not be uncommon for a council member to check off every single item because, when we designed the survey, we put items on there that we thought were important for kids to do. So it would not be weird for that to happen. And I'm seeing a question. Christopher, do you have a question here? Oh, hand just went down. Chris.
Oh, yeah. On my data where it says what careers interest you, no one in my school answered that. They're all 0%, so I didn't know if that was a technical error or none of my kids actually answered that.
It sounds like a technical error, and we have a great tech department. They usually, when I bring something their attention, like within an hour or two, it's fixed. So I would guess that was a technical error, and I think the state changed some of their clusters, their career clusters, and we made those changes as well to mirror what the state of Indiana had done. So my guess is that we have a glitch in there. So I'll check on that, and our tech department will get back with you right away to let you know when that is fixed, and actually we'll have them email that to all of you. So okay.
Okay, one other question real quick. I had some of my 8th grade teachers really concerned about it being an anonymous survey, but then when the 8th graders log in and ask them their name, address, and I'm assuming that's to get college information to them.
That is true. I'm just making a note here about your first question, careers. Okay, that's true. So the survey is actually, it's two different surveys that are back to back. So on the first part of the survey, we ask the students their names and their email addresses and all that. And the questions on that survey just include the student choices, which are all academic, career in nature. And then it also asks them what guidance knowledge do they have. So what's their knowledge about careers and post-secondary ed, and also some personal social things like what's their knowledge about bullying and things like that. And then on that portion of the survey, there are 3 questions. One says, do you give ASA permission to share your responses with your school counselor so that they can give you additional information? And then the same question, do you give us permission to share your responses with Indiana colleges so they can send you information about their college? And then the third question is, can we share information with Learn More Indiana, a state agency, so that they can send you information in areas where you indicated you needed information. So if a student doesn't say yes to those questions, everything's confidential. And I actually, when we designed this, I asked our programmers to make it technologically impossible for us to identify who a student is if we didn't have the yeses on those questions. So that's on the first part of the survey. The second part of the survey, if you noticed, about halfway through the survey, we asked the students their gender and ethnicity and all those questions again, but this time we did not ask them for their names and their identifying information. So the second half of the survey is actually, it's a different survey. It just looks like they're the same, but it's a whole separate survey. And on that one, it is technologically impossible to identify a student to an answer. And that survey includes the questions about their social personal concerns, and it includes questions about how they feel about their school counselor. So it is technologically impossible for me or our tech staff or you or anybody to associate responses with answers on that question. And we did that on purpose for a couple reasons. One, I didn't want to put our staff or me or you in the position of ever being in a situation where somebody would say, oh, based on the responses of the social personal responses, you should have been able to predict that that student was going to run away or that student was going to attempt suicide or whatever. So we just didn't want to put anybody in that position. So we wanted to make it impossible for that reason. So that's why we didn't do that. We have hired an attorney who specializes in FERPA, the Right to Privacy Act, to look at all of our stuff, and we do have a statement from him saying that everything that we're doing is FERPA compliant and that we handle the student data appropriately. So if you need us to provide that to your teachers, we can send you a copy of that letter. So does that help? Is that good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, very good. Okay, okay, good questions. So here is an example of the drill down data. So let's go back. Did you visit a college campus this year and the people were concerned that only 40% or wanted that to happen? And the 40% said they were, so it wasn't that bad of data. But now I can drill down to see, who's doing college campus visits. And when I look at all students, there's the 40%. But if I look at my paid lunch students, it's 51%, and when I look at my free and reduced, it's only 26%. So that's something there that concerns me that I'd like to see, us work on if I'm in that school. And so later when we're designing the programming, we're going to be wanting to pay attention to why aren't free and reduced lunch kids visiting college campuses, and what do we need to do differently so that that is not the situation, so that that's at least equal to the paid lunch kids. So okay, okay, so let's walk through this month's meeting, and let me see here. Is that, yeah, I'm going to go to, there we go. So I'm in the website and I'm going to scroll down to November. So here, the webinar that we are recording right now will be posted here. Here's the pre-meeting memo and the achievement goals. One of these, I think it's the second one, downloads just a template that you can type your school's achievement goals into if you don't have something that's user-friendly in your school improvement plan. And then the pre-meeting memo, let me open that up real quickly so you can just take a peek at that. Oops, you can see what just popped up was my exercises for tonight. That's funny. So here's school letterhead. So we're talking about, that our academic goals are in here. And then here's everything we talked about, school counseling program goals. And then here's the website that we're taking them to. And then the things that are in red, you'll drop in your name and contact information there if they have questions. So, okay. Okay, so let's go back to, so that's the send the pre-meeting memo. Upload the achievement goals. I think this is something we haven't seen yet, but if you click on this, it gives you an uploader button where you can upload either a page from your school improvement plan, or you can fill out this template and upload that. But we do want to see your school's achievement goals so that we can see how the whole program is designed around those goals. Okay, so then we're going to conduct the Advisory Council Meeting 3, and I'm going to download that. And that takes me to the memo. And then I'm going down to goals. And here's the presentation. And we'll open that up. And then we'll walk through that real fast. Okay, so we're doing view. I'm sorry, slide, wrong one, slideshow, current slide. Okay, so welcome slide for your meeting. And today's agenda, reviewing, we're looking at desired student choices, and then we're going to look for guidance gaps. So we're reviewing the organizational process and all of the belief statements. I'm just going to fly through these because we just went through them all. Okay, and this I think is important, that we are reminding folks that out of all of these discussions there comes a product, and the last product was the vision statement. At New Augusta, you haven't had a chance to share your vision with people yet because of the last meeting, and that you're still working on that. So this would be a great time to say, at the last meeting we talked about visioning, and thanks for your input, and here's the vision statement that we came up with. And the rest of you too, I would pass out a copy of your vision statement so people can see, oh, good, there's products that come out of these discussions. It's not just for fun. So, okay, and then today we're talking about program goals, and so the product coming out of today will be the program goals. And then, the rest of the products will be in months that are coming. Okay, so today we're looking at program goals. So first thing we want to think about is, what are our school's achievement goals? And again, you've got those written on a piece of paper. You've already passed them out in the pre-meeting memo, with the pre-meeting memo, but I'd also have a copy there just to remind everybody, we're here because we're a school, and this was what our school is trying to achieve. And then today, we're going to come up with school counseling program goals. So, and then here's our first definition of it. So we're telling people our school counseling goals are the choices that we believe that all students should make ideally in order for our school to reach those goals. So our program goals are all focused on what choices do we want kids to make. So on this slide, we're helping your council kind of understand how we're going to express our data. So our goal is then to increase the percentage of, and then here are the components of the goal, the way we use them with RSC. So it's going to be, it's our goal to increase the percentage of, and then we'll look at the student group, all students who report bullying when they observe it. And then after we've looked at our data, once our goal is fully written, our baseline data is 65%, our target data is 85%. That's where we want to be a year from now. So our goal is to increase the percentage of all students who take a career interest inventory. We're at 32%. We really want that to be 100%. And so that's what we're going to work for. And within a year, all of our students will have done that. All students talk to their parents about school. All 8th graders, so now we're working with a subgroup of all students, all 8th graders will create a high school course plan. Right now we're at 0%, and we want to put that up to 100%. That's something we want to add to our program. And then if in the drill down data we start to find that our boys are not making choices at a comparable level as to girls, we might even want to focus in a goal on boys. So we're looking at the percentage of boys who ask for extra help in class. 52%, we want to increase that to 70%. And then the timeline is by the end of next school year. So this is what it's going to look like when it's finished, when you're finished with the goals process. One kind of heads up for both ASCA and Gold Star, Indiana Gold Star, there needs to be a focus on closing achievement gap. I'm sorry, closing a guidance gap. And so here's, where that's happening. The school is focusing on the gap in guidance between, in the choices between boys and girls. So at least one of your student groups needs to be at least one of your groups has to be a subgroup or a student group. So free and reduced lunch kids, or boys, or Hispanic, or whatever. Okay. So So we're talking about, then we're starting out with the school's achievement goals. And here is a template where you can put this in here. So you'd write, 2000 and it depends on what plan you've got written. A lot of schools are starting to work on their 2016-17 plans, next year's plans. So you could write in here, 2015-16 or 16-17, whatever your most recent plan is. And then you're saying, these are achievement goals now. So our achievement goals are that, all students will pass the algebra end of course exam. Our current data is, whatever, 72%. We want to increase that to 76%. So you've taken out the achievement goals out of your school improvement plan and dropped them into this slide. Or in lieu of doing this slide, you could just pass that out on paper as well. So, but somehow we need to get the school and the student achievement goals in front of people before they start looking at the choices. Okay, so now that we know those achievement goals, now we want to look at, okay, what student choices do kids need to make? And we're reminding people that the student choices are your program goals. So, here's the top bar here is the school improvement plan. Now we want to know what choices are kids going to need to make in order for us to reach our academic goals. And then later we'll design a school counseling program that's going to help kids make those choices that we define. So today is all about student choices. Oops. So the key question is, what choices should all students make, because those choices will enable students to reach our school's academic goals, to succeed at the next educational level, and to succeed in post-secondary ed, and succeed in a global economy. That global economy is getting more and more public talk in terms of getting kids into high skill, high wage jobs. So you might want to, especially if you've got your business community there, your Chamber of Commerce, that part of these choices should be, what choices do kids need to make so that they're ready to take high skill jobs in our community. So, okay. Program goals. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about today possible goals. So we're going to review the student choice report that you brought with you, that we sent you, as an email attachment or in the mail. And we're going to begin by each of you just noting the choices that you checked. So, and then we're going to ask, what additional student choices should student make that are not on the report? So I think the report is pretty comprehensive in terms of all the choices that kids should be making, but every year schools tell us we missed a few, and we do. So we want to give your council a chance to say, here's another choice that's not on there. And give your council a chance to add a choice. Okay, so the way we're going to do this is to do what we call an Instagraph. It is a tool for bringing a large group, 17, 25, 100, for bringing a large group of people to consensus quickly. So when we look at the Instagraph, what we want you to do, and we're saying this to the council, what we want you to do is to place a sticky dot or an X, depending on how you're doing this, sticky dot or an X, above any goal that you do not feel are important for the students in our school to make. So the Instagraph, that says above, doesn't it? This should say next to. I'll change that and re-upload it. So this is what the Instagraph looks like. So there are different building level Instagraphs. You're looking at the one for high schools. So if I think, so I go up here and I've already done this analysis, and I look down and all of the goals choices are checked in the report that I did before I came to the meeting, except for number 3. I don't think it's necessary for all of our students to submit a post-secondary app. So what I would do is I'd come up to this poster, and Sue Reynolds would come up to this poster, and I'd put an X or a little sticky dot right here. And then the next person, when they come up, if they also think that students should not choose to fill out a post-secondary app, they would put their X or sticky dot next to mine, and the third person would put it out here. And what we end up doing is we end up building a bar graph. So here's an example. The first person comes up, and I like to use those little sticky dots just because they're colorful and they're kind of fun. I pass them out as people come in the door, but you can do this with X's too. So the first person comes up, they put their X's up, or their sticky dots. Second person comes up, third person. So you can see we're building a bar graph. And then that pretty much narrows the discussion. There may be one or two of those that get, several votes, but, the ones that nobody voted for, we don't need to discuss those at all. And you might, suggest to the group, the ones that only one person voted for, do we need to discuss those, or are those okay? We're going to say those are choices we think kids should make. But oh my gosh, we better talk about number 2 and number 5, because, we're seeing that some of you think that that's not a choice. So, it looks like we just need to leave those out of our choices, but how do you feel about that? So this is a way for you to take a very comprehensive discussion that could last like hours, and to get it down into, this discussion may take 15 minutes. I mean, it just is a really easy way to get a large group to consensus quickly. Okay, so I'm just going to see if I've got any hands up. I need to move my control panel back up here. Let me open up the attendees, and I'm not seeing any questions. Good. Okay, so guidance gaps. This is just a brainstorm, and we're asking people, as you went into the drill down reports, did you notice any groups of students that you think are making choices at a rate that is less than their peers? And so then there's another instagraph. This time we're placing sticky dots next to the student groups that they believe are making sound choices at a rate that is less than their peers. So here's all the different student groups that we have data for. And again, they would just come up and put sticky dots next to any groups that they think are not making choices at a rate that's comparable to their peers. Typically, low income, the free and reduced lunch kids will have some checks in them, and sometimes it's especially in the elementary schools, we'll get some people that notice that boys aren't making as sound choices as maybe the girls in your building. So yeah, so we just kind of want to identify, and it's a pretty easy discussion, and it's pretty straightforward, I think, after people start to dig into the data. And then that's it. We're telling people thank you. And let me back up. One thing I forgot to say. On this slide, we've had schools that in this whole sheet there may be like 50 things listed here, and nobody says that they want to leave out any of those choices. That's fine. It is, and I want to emphasize that over and over again. It is okay for you to have 60, 70 different program goals, 60 or 70 choices that you want kids to make. And if you think about your students, think about your own children. As soon as they're born, there's choices that they have to make as a 3-year-old, and as a 4-year-old, and as a 3rd grader, and as a 9th grader. There are a lot of choices that kids need to make in order to be successful in school and in life. We just want to get all those choices identified, and then that's the goal of your school counseling program, is to help kids make all of those choices. Now, don't feel overwhelmed, because while we're going to identify that there are all those choices, in the next step we're going to come back and say, okay, we have all these choices, but the reality is, here's how much time we have, here's our resources, we can't possibly address 60 things all at once. What are the 2 or 3 that you think are really important? So we're going to identify that there's all these things that kids have to do, and then next month we're going to come back and narrow it down. So, okay. So looking ahead, after today, the steering team will create program goals based on the council's input. And then at the next meeting, we're going to look at expanding our resources. So there'll be a discussion, and it's a really cool meeting, because your advisory council is like, they want kids to make all 60 of those choices, and all of a sudden you come back and you say, well, we can't. And they'll say, well, why not? And then you've got your time task log data there. And everybody at this meeting gets really creative about how to get the counselors more time. how to get rid of the non-program tasks from counselors so that they can address more of those choices that we want kids to make, how to get the counselors funding or more personnel or whatever. So that is a really powerful discussion at that point. And then we say, okay, so we've expanded our resources as much as we think we can. Now, based on the time and energy we have, how many of those 60 things realistically can we address? And those will become our priority goals. And we usually suggest not more than 2 or 3. And even one is fine. My first year when I did this, I did 1, and we did that one really, really well. And then the next year we did 1 more. So we just did, a little chunk at a time, kind of at getting in all 60 of those things. So then at meeting 4, we're going to help look at why aren't kids making the choices we want them to make. And then at meeting 5, we're going to look at the activities that we'll put in place to help kids make those choices. But today it's about identifying what choices kids need to make in our building in order to be successful at school. Okay, so that's that. I'm going to go back to the online system real quickly, and then I think we can finish up. I'm going to go back to the process page. And down to November. Okay, so when you're entering your program goals, and those of you who have done this on paper before, I think you're going to appreciate this a lot. When I'm entering my program goals, I'm just going to click enter. And there are several steps to this that we've put in place to save you a ton of time. So you're conducting your council meeting, that's also on the process page. And then we give you the choice to add suggested program goals. So I think this is really cool. So here's suggested program goals. These goals align both with the Instagraph that you used in your meeting and with the data in the survey that you gave last spring. So we have baseline data for you for all of these possible goals. So anytime you select a goal off of this list, it will have aligned with the Instagraph, and we will have baseline data from the survey for you. So when I'm checking these, I could say, okay, yes, we want all of our students to plan to go to college. Yes, we want them to do continue their education after high school. Trying to look at one it would make sense to, yeah, let's go down to number 7. On number 7, meet with the college rep at the high school. This says all grades, but I don't want it for all grades. I just want my juniors to do that. So, or just my seniors to do that. So you can narrow down the student group by checking the grade levels, or you can narrow it down and say that I don't want all students to do this. I don't know why you would say this, but you could say I just want my girls to meet with a college rep. So you can narrow down this way too. So I don't know why you wouldn't have a goal for all students, but if you're trying to close a gap, there may be a time where you really wanted to emphasize that you wanted to be the Hispanic students that met with the college rep or whatever. So, okay. So also you can select, just select all, and then that puts a check in all the boxes, and then all you have to do is adjust the grade levels. So, and you just have to kind of think this through. Maybe it's not important to you that your 7th and 8th graders, plan to go to college. That would be important to me, but maybe not to you. So, you just have to think, who do we want this goal to be for? Okay, now one heads up on this section. If you are an Indiana school seeking the Indiana Gold Star Award, you have to address all of the student choices. So this has to be an all. And then there has to be some kind of programming in place to address all of the choices. So, and again, before that seems overwhelming, so many of these you can do in one guidance lesson. Planning to continue their education after high school, planning to go to college, you can do both of those in one activities. attend a college fair and meet with a college rep. That could be done in one activity. So there's lots of choices there. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to go back. So that's the suggested program goals. Now, we also give you a tool where you can create your own goal. So you just click enter, and you might have a goal name like truancy. We want to impact the percentage of students who have 10 or more absences a semester. And I'm looking at all students. I'm not going to narrow it down by grade level. But I've noticed that I really have this issue with males. So I'm going to put in males as a student group and then save the goal. And then in your list of goals, that will appear here. Now, as I'm looking at this, I notice that all the other goals start with a capital letter, and I put my name with a small letter. So I can go ahead and edit this by just clicking on that edit button and change it to a cap, save the goal. But what I want to point out here is that the suggested goals we don't let you edit. And that's because these suggested goals are aligned with data from the survey. And if you were to edit the language in the goal, we could no longer associate that with the survey data. So let's say that you don't like this language. You want to, say, discuss their future plans with their parents. So we don't let you edit this. What you can do is delete this goal and then go up and create a different goal up here using the program goals that you create a different goal that says discuss future plans with their parents. So you can't edit the ones that are aligned with data. You can get rid of them, and then you can create something else. But of course, for any goal that you create, there's no data in with it. So okay. Later, when you're setting your data targets, we'll give you the data. You'll see that. So okay, I'm going to go back, just wrap up a little bit more. Okay. I've added the goals that I've created. I can review the program goals report. That just brings up the report. I can edit the program goals, and I do that below down here like we just said, and then enter meeting minutes. So I can do that there as well. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the process page and wrap up there, and then we'll be finished. So back on the process page, I do want to look at the rubric items for program goals. So kind of simple. Achievement goals have been uploaded. Program goals are present. Because we give it to you as a template, it's kind of hard to mess it up. The program goals reflect desired student choices in areas that impact student achievement. At least one program goal targets a specific student group, so boys or Hispanic or free and reduced lunch or whoever. And then Indiana only, each of the students' standards for guidance is reflected in a goal. So when you pick all goals, you hit all of the Indiana student standards for guidance. So I think the most common feedback you might get in this section, there's two things that schools tend to have problems with here. One is that they forget that one of their program goals has to identify, at least one has to identify a specific student group. And that may be another thing I probably should have mentioned on that one, is that you might have a goal that is like that all students do a campus visit, but in your data, if you notice that your boys aren't doing campus visits, you could actually have two goals. You could say all students would do a campus visit, that would be one goal, and then a second goal would be that boys would do a campus visit. So that would then, in your programming, require you to put in programming that would make that happen for all students, but would make it happen in a bigger way for your boys as you try to close that that achievement gap or that guidance gap. So, okay. So that's one issue that we often see that we haven't addressed as a student group. And then the other thing, for the goals that you write, if they're not measurable, if they have words in them that make them vague, like one of your goals is that students will be nice. Well, what does nice mean? So if we don't have a really clear picture of what that goal is, we'll ask you to rewrite and make it more concrete, or that, you know, all students will be better, or all students will turn in more homework, and we don't know what more is. So those vague words, you want to avoid them when you're writing your goals. And then sometimes we'll look at a goal and we'll think, well, this doesn't make any sense. We have no idea what they're trying to say there. And we know that if we don't know, that also means your counsel's not going to know, and your principal and your school board or whoever else is looking at your goals. So, so when you submit your goals to Debbie, please be understanding that we're trying to help if we ask you to rewrite something. And I know it's kind of a pain if you have to do that, but we want to make sure that your goals are really clear, because everything else after this is going to be based on those goals. So, okay, I think that's it. Let me see if we have questions, or people can just pop in. If you have anything you want to ask, and I know we're a little bit over, I'm sorry. Questions?
Can you explain what you were saying about if you're an Indiana school, you have to keep all of them on there? I guess I'm just confused because previously it sounded like you said we could delete them if they didn't vote on them with a colored sticky dot.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So yes, when you're voting on those goals, if everybody says, well, that's not a choice for kids in our school, I would answer back to your council, for us to earn Gold Star, we have to address all these areas. So just a little bit of background on that. Indiana has the Indiana Student Standards for Guidance, which is this long list of standards, just like math standards or English standards. And then they have another document called the Indiana Universal Student Standards for Guidance. And those are standards that a broad-based group of people decided that every student in Indiana, you know, if they're living in the most affluent area, urban area, poor area, you know, anywhere, urban, rural, that these are just choices that all kids should make. So I think if you're going to leave out one of those choices, I'd want your council to understand that, you know, the expectation for Gold Star is that you do all the choices. If you had an issue with that, I would call Amanda Cullen at DOE and just explain that your council really took exception to this one choice, and, you know, see how she advised you. You know, I think Amanda's very reasonable, and she makes exceptions when it makes sense to make exceptions. So does that help? Does that?
Yeah, so I think I'm still a little confused, so I apologize, but
That's okay.
I think I understand that all of our advisory council would agree that yes, students should make all of these choices. So I guess my question is, who has to focus on every single one of them? What is the purpose of the activity?
Yeah, the purpose of the activity is to give your council, that's a very good question. I see your confusion. So if you have to do it, why even have the discussion? Well, but the thing is, you don't have to do it. You don't have to become Gold Star. You don't have to do anything with this. It's always a choice. So, and you know, they're
I
conceived.
guess so. I agree with all of it. I really do. I guess I'm just pressing you because I need maybe the language to use when I'm presenting in front of the advisory council in terms of the questions I'm asking. I anticipate those same questions.
Yeah, I would, and that's a really good question. I'm glad you're asking it, because everybody's going to be in the same boat. I would maybe open up the discussion by saying, you know, for us to earn the Gold Star Award, it's expected that we would help kids make all these choices. But we have to see, do we buy into that? You know, we may decide that it's not important to us to help kids make all these choices, and we don't want to earn the Gold Star Award. So what we want to do is look through all of these and see, are there any that we can't live with, that we find them objectionable and that we'd want to give up the award rather than to, help our kids make these choices. So, that way you're kind of doing it up front. You're letting people know that, if we take out any of these, that it will keep us from getting the Gold Star Award. Now, that said, it does not keep you from getting the RAMP award. ASCA had a different view on this, and ASCA's view is that each community should look at possible choices, and they should only select the choices that make sense for their community. So it's not like a statewide, everything's the same for every school. ASCA gives the schools freedom to select the choices that they think are important. So you can still earn the RAMP award if you decide not to go down that road with Gold Star. That said, again, and you can share this with your council too, Amanda Cullen is so much a good person who is common sense, and if you can say to her, our council did not like this choice, and here's why, and I think if you made a case for that, she'd be able to say, okay, we'll make an exception in this case and allow you to earn Gold Star, since we've had this discussion and it's been carefully thought out on your part. I think you'd be okay, but we actually never had that happen. I think, like you say, the choices are pretty straightforward. But again, later we're going to be asking people to do work around those choices, to help, not only the school counselors, but down the road we're going to ask community organizations, what can you do to help kids make these choices as well? And so we really want them to feel the ownership for the choices, and not that those choices are being done to them, but they're coming from within. They're coming from the hearts of your community. Does that I don't know if that helps.
No, I think that is helpful, and it's really helpful just to kind of have the language sometimes.
Yeah.
When it presents a question. So I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I think in the manual, in the facilitator guide, I think we discussed that a little bit more in there too. So, very, very good question. Yeah, that was a great question. Other questions? Anybody else? Okay, let me go. I'm going to just put up these last slides then. So we've done all that. Did that. Okay, here's Debbie's contact information again. And one last thing, if you end up with 60 or 70 different choices, that is a good thing, because kids do have to make 60 or 70 choices. So don't worry right now that it's going to be just totally overwhelming to you. You'll be able to hit 5 or 6 of those choices in one activity. Some of those choices are addressed in family and consumer science classes. Some are addressed in the health curriculum. So it won't necessarily mean that you're, helping, that you have to implement the entire program. So, I guess in working with previous schools, there tends to be a little worry right now that this is going to be too overwhelming. But I can tell you that once you get into it and start to identify, okay, where are we going to hit that choice? Where are we going to hit this choice? 80% of it you're doing already anyway. So it's just a matter of kind of tweaking your program to get the rest of those in. So not to worry. I promise you it'll be okay. You're going to find that you're doing a lot of it anyway. So, okay, any last questions? I see one, Brian. Question. And for some reason I'm not able to pull it up. Debbie, can you pull up Brian's question?
It's not a question. I just said thank you.
Oh, you're
Thanks
welcome.
for the information. It's helpful.
Okay, thank you. Okay, let's close then. You all know how to get a hold of Debbie. Please don't hesitate to call us. We want to be there for you. And I can't, really great reports when we did our sharing prior to recording this time, and I'm just super psyched and can't wait to hear how your goals go when we talk in December. So thanks everybody. We'll catch you later. Bye.